Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about loving people well. Cancel culture and cutting people out of our lives may be the fashion of the day, but is it healthy? Join us as we discuss how to love even in hard situations. Let's get started. Listeners, today we are talking about what it truly takes to love someone. And this discussion today stems from conversations we've had about cancel culture running rampant among family and friends. There seems to be an unhealthy appreciation with cutting people out of our lives when they don't 100% support every decision we make, or flippantly writing off a family member that questions your decisions. You may be asking yourself right now, what's love got to do with it? Well, love has everything to do with it, and today we'd like to talk through some hard situations so that we can help ourselves and you love people well, because we definitely want to start out this episode saying that we don't always do the right thing.
Right. The standard for love is pretty overwhelming and high. So it's definitely something we fall short of, but we want to always be striving for.
It is one of those conversations that we have to preclude by saying none of us feel like we are the masters of this. We are all learning and we all long to do a better job, which is why we're forcing ourselves to talk about it.
Right. And how this came up was just that I've seen mostly in Facebook comments, but I've just seen this idea that, I don't like something that someone said or how they act. And so now I just don't speak to my husband's side of the family, or now I just don't get together with that friend anymore, or I just write that person right out of my life. And it just seems so extreme.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sad, really.
Yeah. And so I guess we just wanted to walk through, when is it okay to just completely cut off people? And maybe when should we work a little bit harder and, stay the course?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because really, what family relationship or what friendship will never have a disagreement? Mm-hmm. I mean, really.
Right. So we have some good questions here, and keep in mind that we are learning right along with you. And this is challenging for me because I definitely don't always do the right thing. But in general, how do we show others we love them, Julie and Mindy? And I think this kind of goes back to the love languages. How do you show others that you love them? Whatever you write down on how you show others you love them is probably your love language. And so the first thing I wrote down was I talk to them.
Oh, I feel so loved.
Yes, I'm a person of words. And so look at all the talking I do to you, Julie and Mindy. So I must really love you. And then I spend time with them, because someone could be too far away for you to spend time with them. So talking, might be all you have. But if you can spend time with someone, that's great too. And then, I don't know, I'm kind of a caretaker, so I feel like I grow to love the things that I take care of. So if I'm taking care of a friend in some way, or a child, or a pet, or whatever in my life, if I'm a flower, if I'm taking care of it, I grow to love it.
Yeah. Along with that, I totally agree with all those, Marie. Those were all ways that I show my family and friends I love them. And I was also thinking I sacrifice. Sacrifice maybe my time or what I wanted to do or what I wanted to talk about or the sleep that I wanted to get, I just, so all that comes all under the umbrella of sacrifice, that I'm willing to sacrifice the things that I want or need or whatever for another person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, what is love? I said, it is a feeling, but it's also a behavior or an action. Mm-hmm. And I said it involves sacrifice. True love would be not expecting to get anything in return. And we all do. We all want something in return. But speaking of love languages, mine would be acts of service and time. Mm-hmm. So I'm about doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, what do you do when times get tough? Because what do you do when you don't feel like loving someone else? And this is where I say that I don't always do the right thing. And that's why this episode is good for me. If I've gotten in fights with family members or friends, And when I say fights, it could be the person knows about the fight, or it could be the person doesn't know about the fight. The fight could all be in my own head.
Right. That is the question sometimes. Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I most often do is my first instinct is to withdraw. Fine, you don't need me. I don't need you either. Or fine, you don't like me. Well, I don't like you either then. And that's my first instinct.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I would say, well, you're not my friend anymore. And I would pick up all my Barbies and go home.
And we still want to do that as adults. We think we've outgrown it, but we haven't.
No. On the inside, I'm cleaning up my Barbies and I'm going home.
Julie, how about you? Are you more wise than us?
Oh, no. And like you, Marie, said, most of my fights are in my head. Like a lot of times it's kind of sad. People don't know it, it's all going on inside. And so I tend to pull away, but it's not so much out of resentment. I just need some time to figure things out. Like it's hard for me to keep pretending everything's good if in my mind it's not. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like I want my thoughts and my actions to match up. So sometimes I just pull back till I can figure that out.
Right. And there's a fine line between maybe you're angry at the person or maybe you're hurt. And so I think my first instinct is to pull away too if I'm mad that they've hurt me,
Right.
So we're mad over being hurt. And so it's all jumbled up together.
Right. And I'm going to go totally mental on us here because I do question myself. And sometimes I do have to do that pulling away time, like Julie said, just to see, is this perceived or did it actually happen? Because I think we'll talk about this later, but kind of definitions of love are in the Bible. And I think, is it true? Like I run through a list in my mind. I was like, well, is that true that I feel that way? Did that actually happen? Or am I perceiving something because of my own insecurity or fear or so? And am I projecting that on that person or did they actually do something?
Right. You're doing really good, Mindy. You're giving them the benefit of the doubt.
I don't know. Like I have to pull away. I was like, well, did it really happen? Or, because I think we so often react out of our own fear, insecurity, and we project onto other people perceived wrongs. In all actuality, we're the ones on the struggle bus.
Yeah. I wish I had that internal ability. Unfortunately, I go to John and he's that person. He's like, now, Julie, do you really think that's what they meant? I really don't think, that's what they meant. Or do you really want to throw that friendship away over this? Like he talks me down.
I just find that men in general are better at that. Like,
yeah, they don't get their feelings hurt.
Yeah. If I went and complained about a situation to Steve, he would totally look at it objectively and be like, well, I know that stinks, but let's just move on. Like, don't bring it up. I wouldn't bring it up to him. That's what he would say. Or like with my kids, if I complain about something to Abigail, she would immediately take up my side and be like, yes, that was awful. Jerks, Yeah. But if I was to complain to either of my sons, they'd be like, really, Mom? Like, I wouldn't even probably complain to my sons because I know
they're no fun.
They don't take up for you.
It's not going to be very gratifying.
Yeah, I think men just avoid maybe interpersonal conflict like
drama.
That. Yeah, drama.
Or they really see how silly it is.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, but sometimes does this happen to you where you're starting to explain how wronged you've been and you're like searching for words, realizing it's not as bad once you start talking, you're like, wait a minute, no, I'm really, really making a mountain out of molehill.
Or wait a minute, I do the same thing.
Yes. Which is the value of getting out of your head. Because in your head, no one's going to say that to you, In your head, no one's going to be objective.
Well, okay. And so I appreciate what Julie just said. Like she talks to John about it. And it's good to have like a safe person that's not going to lose respect or love for you as you process these awful feelings out loud, because sometimes you are just trying to figure out what happened.
Right. Yes. Right. Yes. Right. I was actually listening to this book, and the guy said he was going through a lot of things, and he went and talked to someone else, and the other person just let him talk for like 3 hours. And at the end of the 3 hours, he was like, okay, I solved my own problem. And that's true. Like sometimes if we can someone will just listen to us. A lot of times once we hear ourselves, we're like, okay, I know what I really do need to do.
You hear how ridiculous it is or how glaring it is.
Right.
When you hear it, when you say it out loud.
But sometimes it takes us a while to get there. So in the meantime, while we're trying to work through all this hurt or anger, how do you still continue to love the person that's hurt you? Like, what do you do? Because we're trying to avoid the just cutting them off. The thing that helps me the most is if I can understand them, because I am a why person. Why did they do that?
Right.
Why did they say that? How did they come to that conclusion? Can I see their reasoning? What made them like that? If I could understand a reason, like an experience that they've had that, oh, that's why they did that. It's so enlightening to me that a lot of times the hurt or anger just fades away.
So you mean you actually are talking to them, not just trying to see?
Well, or if I really try to take an objective look at, or maybe I'm talking to my sister about it and she's giving me their side. But whatever, a friend might be giving you their side, but if you can try to understand it.
Realizing there's more to the situation. In simple words, it's like the person cutting you off in traffic. It's a person you probably don't know. And it makes you mad. And you're like, I can't believe they just did that. They're driving like a maniac, whatever. Well, if you could have a spotlight into their life, they could have a sick person in the car they're taking to the emergency department. You know what I mean? Like, and they're completely oblivious of you. And if you knew that, you wouldn't care. You'd be like, please go ahead, But, so that's simple terms, but that we don't always understand, the person that's grumpy to you in the checkout line or the person that does cut you off in traffic. But, that's a healthy display of loving someone when you are hurt, is to be able to step back and try to imagine, perceive, think about, well, have I ever acted that way? What was going on in my life? What could, make them react this way towards me? But it takes getting past your anger and kind of letting that settle. Because that's not my first response. No,
this isn't our first response. This is just, how could we? How could we keep loving someone?
In a perfect world.
Yes. How wrong have they been towards me? Like, how deep is the hurt? Because at that point, that's another thing, is just, how I react is how hurt am I?
Right.
Guess. What type of hurt was it?
And I think if you take the totality of your relationship, like in general, most of the time, is this person a certain way and you get along and it's great and this was just an aberration, or this is just a one-off, or this is just I don't know why they did that, but who knows? In general, they are kind and loving and we get along, and I don't understand why they did this certain situation this certain way, but I'm just going to agree to love them anyways because there's probably some background that I don't understand.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like if it's a pattern continuously happening, then that's different. But just a one-time thing, maybe I tend to want to work through it in silence and then move on. Like, I do not like to tell somebody how they hurt me. And I don't know why that's so hard. Like, some people just find that very easy.
Agree.
Like, hey, I just want to talk to you about something. When you said this the other day, that really hurt. Like, I have trouble doing that. I would rather process it inside, get over it, and move on instead of confronting the person.
Okay. I would love to delve into that, what you just said. Are there people that you are willing to do that with?
Well, obviously my husband. You mean like actually confront?
Actually confront and say, that actually hurt my feelings.
Yeah. And the more that I think that if I know that's what they really want and can handle that, yes. If they've displayed that, like they've said, I want you to tell me, or I've seen that worked out in their life and with other people. But I don't know, a little insecure that's not what people want to hear.
Right.
Like, it might jeopardize the friendship.
I was wondering, do you actually have a lot of people that come to you and say, and are willing to say that, Julie? Because I don't know that I mean, family members, maybe. Only female ones, though. maybe one man, but usually it's only female family members that I can think of that ever even would say, hey, that hurt my feelings, or you didn't come to this and I was really disappointed, or whatever, and I appreciate that. I actually do. Now, I think when people say they appreciate it, that doesn't mean that they hear it and they're immediately understanding of it. But I appreciate being given the chance to talk about it and work it out. And I find that the relationship is usually stronger. They can understand that maybe I didn't know that that was so important to them, or maybe I can understand like how important it really was. Like, I think that those things are helpful. I can't say that I have had a lot of friendships, though, that are willing to do that. Like just friends. I feel like friends usually just ignore something about. I don't know, Julie, do you have a lot of friends that are willing to do that, though? Like call you on something. Okay.
I have one.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I had one.
Uh-oh.
HAD then? Should we highlight HAD?
This was like 20 years ago. I think I've mentioned this story before in friendship things, but it did not go well. But I don't know that it was a friendship that didn't last. And I don't know. It was just really awkward. And I just felt like it was just very hurtful. It was kind of something beyond my control almost that she was so hurt over. And so I just thought, I think it's just best if we're not friends, It was one of those situations I just couldn't put myself back in because, and it became kind of mutual. So it wasn't like I just shut her out. It was kind of mutual, but it was hurtful.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of given me, a little fear, apprehension of ever doing that again.
Right.
Yeah.
So Marie, you mentioned this, that you felt that the relationships were stronger when you've been able to have a healthy, I'll call it healthy confrontation about being wronged or wronging someone. So do you feel that the level of intimacy in a relationship correlates to the amount that you're willing to be confrontational, or?
I think so, because I don't think that any relationship doesn't have conflict, whether it's in one of your heads or out in the open. You cannot possibly know someone 5, 10, 15, 20 years and never have had anything that you could have had a discussion about. Like, I just don't, or else the relationship really isn't that deep, probably.
On the other hand, would you want someone to tell you every time you said something just a little?
Oh, no, I'm not talking about little. I'm talking about like things like where they were 2 weeks later still running this around in their head. Like, I am hurt. No, not just every little thing, but just, things that still come up, months later, like I am still hurt by that. Or every time I see you and this discussion comes up, I'm reminded of that time that you did X. I think if you just talked about it and cleared the air, the relationship would be stronger. But that just might be me.
No, I had a situation yesterday, and he won't mind me sharing this, but my adult son is home and we're doing adulting together. And we had a confrontation. And it's just like, I do things one way, he does things another way. And so, but we have to work together to get these adulting things done. And so we did end up arguing about some things. It wasn't heated. There weren't ugly words. There was nothing mean said, but basically, I'm like, why don't you do this? And he's like, why are you nagging me? But what was really cool about it, and the reason that I would share it, is because we were able to say what we were both feeling in a respectful way, but we both felt it. And then we were able to get to a point of seeing each other's point of view and getting to a point of being in right relationship again. And so when it came down to it, like, it's purely out of love. I mean, this relationship has a lot of love in it. And so we both actually said that we were thankful that we could talk about these things, because I had been frustrated, he had been frustrated. And it was amazing how this like 30-minute conversation could get us to a point of, okay, we recognize this is both difficult for both of us, but we love each other, and we appreciate that we could say what we felt like we're closer for having had that. And so I'm thankful.
Yeah. Yeah. And your relationship was deepened.
And with families are messy and imperfect, and especially with generational differences, I think that's where the greatest conflict comes. And I think there's always the greater potential to hurt and make the most mistakes with the people we actually care about the most.
True.
Because there's just more at stake. And but it's always worth it, whatever effort, to keep it together and to keep it close. So yes, with family, I would hope that we could do that. And back to your question, Marie, if I have done something that's just glaring, and like you said, 2 weeks later, you're still bothered by it, it would feel terrible to think I'm still walking around not knowing that. Like, that's a bad thing to just, for the other person to just go on like everything's fine and be totally unaware. That would be a bad place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just thinking of, there was one time that I was hurt and upset about a situation, and I told you, Mindy and Julie, about it. And there wasn't really anything you could do about it. It wasn't like you could change anything. You couldn't change anything about my hurt. But the fact that you were aware that I was hurt over this thing made me be able to let it go. Whereas if I hadn't told you that I was hurt, that had happened, then I would have still been carrying it.
I was thinking about that, Marie, and I was like, I appreciated that because Julie and I couldn't change, our situations, but we hurt with you. Like, it allowed us to be invited into what you were feeling, and then we were all on the same page, though we couldn't change anything, but we all were invited into that and felt it. I mean, it was unity in the disappointment.
Yeah.
Right.
If I could put it that way, like, we all agreed it was just a bad situation.
Right.
That's really interesting because I will vent to John about things, and he'll say, like, well, why don't you say something to them? And I'm like, no, because it's not going to make a difference. Like, there's nothing that can be done. And he'll say, that doesn't matter. Like, that, you're not looking for a changed outcome. You're just letting people know you. And that's where I get hung up. Like, I don't want to do that. And he, like, I'm fine just telling him. And I don't know if he's trying to get me to move on to other people or what, but that's always his answer is, you just need to let them know. It doesn't matter if it doesn't change anything.
Right.
And I don't always make that connection.
Well,
I think, well, if it's not going to change, let me just drop it,
I think it's interesting because the three of us have a relationship that spanned over 3 years, and I wouldn't call it a business relationship necessarily
because there's no monetary business.
Intrinsic value.
Right.
But no, we have a friendship, and there's another level to our friendship to be committed to one another in this format. And so we are committed to each other. And so at some point things happen, and things have happened, and we have had to talk about them. We've each taken our turns over the past 3 years. And I feel like every once in a while we need a heart to heart. Otherwise we couldn't continue.
Right. And if I came to you and said, well, I'm hurt about this situation, and you guys immediately cut me off, well, I'm never going to tell anyone I'm hurt about a situation.
You're like, yeah, well, that's stupid. I don't know why you feel like that.
Yeah, so there has to be some mutual feeling of trust in order for you to even come to somebody. You have to trust that they're not just going to cut you off at the knees for having brought something up. But I honestly, like, even if I can't do something even if the situation is past and someone comes to me and says, I am so hurt by how you handled that. One, I would feel like there was just this cleansing because they're probably holding on to some resentment. And two, it might help me to do something differently in the future. If this is a long-term relationship, there's probably going to be another opportunity, almost certainly going to be another opportunity where the same type of situation is coming up, and the person, I might be able to make a different choice. I might be able to make a difference the next time.
Yeah. And, speaking of of cancel culture that's kind of going on in the media, and I heard somebody say, like, when you've hurt someone or misspoken or made a mistake, what is always needed is more words, not less, but when you're just cut off and you can never speak again, your opinion is not valued, you're fired, or you're no longer given a voice. that is so harmful. Like you actually need more words, you know, because you can only work it out with more words. And I thought that was really powerful. Like, yeah, like we're just doing such a disservice to people, not letting them explain themselves and defend themselves or maybe change and ask for forgiveness, you know?
Right. Well, we had some specifics, like how do you love your child when they're rebelling?
I'll just say that there was once a decision that a child was making, and it was something I didn't agree with. You know, I was silent for a little while, and then after a lot of prayer, I just said, you know what? I want you to know this is not going to change how I feel about you or how I relate to you. And I just saw this relief come across their face. Like, you know, like, and they said, thank you, Mom. Like, because I think as a parent, we can take things personally and think that to not let them know how we feel is, oh, we're condoning something. We're agreeing with it. We're showing favor to it. And it's not. I just knew I wanted that relationship to be good and whole, and I needed to do that.
Before any action changed on their part.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to treat you any differently. Like, you will not notice me treating you any differently because of it. And it was huge. Huge in the relationship.
I think our instinct is to treat like almost punish the person back into line, or we think we're going to be able to do that, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I say that would depend on if the child is still in your home or not. Also,
well,
that would certainly change the dynamic there. You know, like if your child's in the home and they're rebelling, like they're not driving anywhere. They're not going to have their phone. They're not.
I know we said child, but I meant more an adult.
Yeah. But definitely, like when you hit that adult stage, you know, you're not in charge.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even I can see that running out. Like my last two go to college in August, and I still can take away the car keys. I still can take away the phone. I still have a threat, you know. Luckily, when mine have gone to college, it's had a maturing process on them, and I haven't felt the need to just, I wish I had a threat. But I hope that holds true for my last two also, because your hands are really tied.
Yeah. But yes, I love Julie in this picture of choosing to love them despite the action.
Well, how about your husband? Because there's no way you can have a long-term marriage and not ever have a disagreement or a resentment or a fight in your mind.
He better fall in line. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I still remember something that Mindy said.
Oh, no.
And I have really tried to think about this, like that you know, it's very normal to not always have warm, fuzzy feelings toward your spouse. And even in an intense argument, but to know and believe that we will feel that way again. Like there is a future. We are not ending this thing. Like we will feel that way again. And in the meantime, try not to do anything stupid or burn any bridges, not say anything hurtful, you know, that's going to just delay that closeness again. Right. I think it's when we talked about closeness with our spouse, like when you feel closer, when you feel more distant. So, yeah, just keeping that future time in mind, like it will happen again.
I really feel like that saying, fake it until you make it, just really, you have to do that in marriage. Like you have to act like it, and your feelings will most likely, almost certainly follow. But if you wait for the feeling to act, you're almost never gonna.
Yeah. Julie had to choose with her child to love them, even with no actions changing. That we, with our spouses, we have to continue to choose to love them. And then, you know, thankfully, I mean, we're all still married, and we've all been able to come through, you know, situations and things like that, because we all know marriage is a daily thing. And so it's not that we're just coasting or it's easy. It's just that we keep coming through. We keep forgiving. We keep choosing to love. And both people do. Right. So
I heard somebody say once, you don't have to feel someone else's feelings. You just have to care about their feelings. You know, like I don't have to understand how I hurt them necessarily, like to have those feelings, but just to know that I did, you know, like another way of saying that, I think, is not to just say, I'm sorry you feel like I hurt you. Like putting it on them like it can't be real. I don't understand.
Right.
But I'm sorry that I hurt you. Like your intentions don't really matter. It's what they're perceiving.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what about how do you love the person who has wronged your child? Because I know that, like, don't you just hate the person that makes your kid feel bad?
I think this was the hardest one of all.
All the mama bears out there, raise your hand.
That's
I know when I've been the most angry or protective, it's usually my kids did not feel the same way. They were like, Mom, just let it go. Like, it's not that big a deal. I'll deal with it or whatever. I'm thinking of this one particular situation. And they handled it so well. Like, Mom, it's okay. Like, I can deal with this. I don't want you to jump in there. And I don't know if they're just more forgiving or if they were just embarrassed.
Yeah.
Listen, I still remember we had family friends when all our kids were little. I think we didn't even have Jacob and Nathan yet. And one of my friends' kids bit Grant's arm. And I will never forget that.
Well, here is a hard one in today's culture. How do you love the person who has different political leanings than you? You don't just hit delete on the friend list.
No, because this brings it home with family. I'm thinking of family gatherings, you're getting together for a family reunion or Christmas or Thanksgiving, and not everybody that's coming is going to feel the same way. And so I think the healthiest way sometimes for us to handle it is to call it what it is and say, hey, these topics are off limits. Right now, we're just going to play these games and we're going to talk about our kids and talk, sometimes to me, ignoring it is a little bit healthy.
Yeah. I think agreeing to disagree is a valid response.
That's what I said.
Yeah, like you're not going to change someone's mind. Now, I am more than willing to hash something out. Like we've had some great discussions amongst family before, and I'm more than willing to do that. But we also, you also know when it's not appropriate and when it wouldn't be good. So if someone doesn't want to hash it out, then I think agreeing to disagree. And I mean, I have friends that I don't bring certain topics up with because I already know we disagree on them. And what good is it going to do? Like we all know who you can talk to about certain things. That's just life.
Yeah. And I think, like in a family situation, one-on-one might be okay. But in a big group, I find then people start taking sides and then some people might feel ganged up on. So it's probably better to leave it to like a one-on-one. And most people, when it comes to politics, aren't really looking to have their minds changed. So it's like, why are we really having this discussion? Because that's not, unless you are really trying to learn something new, gain a new perspective, the conversation is probably useless.
Right.
And I'm just always amazed how couples can be married that have different political affinities and platforms they support. Like, people do it, but I don't know that I could do that. Like, I feel like that's so personal and,
It's okay to scroll on by. Like, I can just ignore what somebody has posted and scroll on by. I don't need to get in a fight. I don't need to defriend them. Even in the world, even people I come in contact with on a personal basis, I can still be your friend and just avoid a certain topic. Like, we don't have to agree about every single thing. It's boring if you agree about every single thing sometimes.
Do you guys follow Adam Grant on Instagram?
No.
He's like a workplace psychologist. And he had this quote. It kind of goes with what you said, Marie. He said, the clearest sign of intellectual chemistry isn't agreeing with someone. It's enjoying your disagreements with them. Because harmony is the pleasing arrangements of different tones, voices, instruments, not the combination of all identical sounds. Like if an orchestra played all the same notes, it just wouldn't be very rich and beautiful. But I thought, I don't know too many people that can live that out. Like what he said is very true, but it's just very hard to to live out with family members, especially. But
yeah,
too many relationships, I think, have been lost or harmed by a flippant comment, either that you wrote or that you commented on social media. Social media seems to be its own monster, when it comes to loving relationships, because I know that if you're in a room with that person, you wouldn't talk like that or you wouldn't say that. Does that make sense? Like you would remember, you're seeing their face, watching their reaction. Like you can love a person easier when you're talking with that person, but when you remove the person and you're not looking at them, it's real easy to make a snarky comment or,
it emboldens
get into
people.
it. Yeah. And so it's just, it can be so harmful for those loving relationships that you have had for years. And then all of a sudden, it's time to vote for the president and we can't talk to half our family,
Yeah. Well, do you think that you can really love someone if it never costs you anything or you never have to sacrifice something? I mean, wouldn't it be great if we could?
So easy.
I know, but I don't know that you can really love someone if it never costs you anything or you never have to sacrifice something because, people are flawed. People have needs. People fall down. You have to forgive. A part of loving someone is forgiving them. Are you willing to forgive them when they do make the inevitable mistake?
Yeah, I don't think it's love if it's always just when it's convenient, like you do. Sometimes it's a sacrifice of your time, your money, your opinion, your own rights, maybe, And I think marriage and parenting both are just the best shapers of who we are to become better people if we let them. Because they burn away a lot of the stuff in us that's unhelpful and selfish. It's a good sacrifice. It's necessary. And so I heard somebody say one time, love doesn't require us to lay down our life for someone, but lay our life aside. Like just putting your wants and needs sometimes. And I'm not saying to put yourself in harm's way or stay in an abusive relationship.
Right.
Sure.
Or to not take care of yourself. I'm not saying any of that. But I think we, as moms, we can see how sacrificial love is.
Absolutely. I know I heard a pastor say that marriage is like holy sandpaper, smoothing off the rough edges, that you really are going to change each other, hopefully for the better. And so I also heard that the biggest killer of marriage is selfishness. It's continuing to just put yourself above and just deciding that you're going to get what you need. So the other thought that I had was definitely when you have a baby, whoever's had a baby can totally relate with this. That child gives you nothing. It stills your body. It stills your physical body, your sleep, your sanity. Like if you're nursing, like everything that you do, your whole day is gone. Your night is gone. You have nothing that is yours. And that child is not giving you anything in return. It like you do everything for this little infant that is,
helpless,
taken over your world. Totally helpless. And so I guess we could call that a love boot camp, like it really just
Right. Well, that's why I said you grow to love whatever you take care of, because taking care of that infant, your love grows exponentially. Everything you do for it, every sacrifice you make, every time you get up in the middle of the night, every time you feed it, your love grows and grows and grows.
Which creates a bunch of mama bears, which is why we all had a hard time answering the other question.
Well, let me ask you this. While I don't think, that we need to be martyrs, we've talked about how hard it is moving into the empty nest because we've sometimes forgotten who we are, because of the sacrifices we've made. Do you regret any of that? Like think, gosh, I gave up my plans. I gave up who I was. Now I'm just lost, like I don't know who I am. Like, do you regret that? Or think I should have done something different?
I don't think that we regret it. I think we would all totally make every sacrifice again. I think it's just that we don't like the uncomfortable feeling of what's next. Like, I don't think anyone likes to not know what's next.
Yeah.
I have reevaluated over the years. There were certain times in my kids' development that I had to reevaluate what I was doing. Is this where I need to be? Do I need to stay at home? That, I don't want to resent what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were different seasons where I really did kind of delve deep into is this where I need to stay? With being a stay-at-home mom in specific. And so I did have to kind of question, is this all there is? Is this going to be my life? Because I'm going to have a lot of years at home and no skill sets in the workforce by the time I'm done. And so it really was, I had to actively make that choice. It seemed like probably every 5 years or so. And so now and every time I answered that question, I became more content once I answered it. But it takes some soul searching, and each new phase takes, that soul searching. Who am I going to be? Is this where I want to stay? What changes do I need to make for this next season of life? And so I do feel very content through the years, more content with what I've chosen to do. And that I can laugh about that I don't have a really good skill set in the workforce. But that's what I've chosen. I'm content and I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Like, we joke about like, oh, we don't even know what our favorite things are because we defer to our kids, like whatever you want, But because I had a friend maybe suggest that was maybe unhealthy for us, but I just don't agree. I don't regret doing that.
Well, there's going to come, maybe it would be unhealthy if that was your whole life, but there is going to come a time where you find out again what your favorite is. And that's how parenting is over and over again. No matter what stage you're in, there's going to come a time when you sleep again. There's going to come a time when you can walk out the door and don't have to, put someone's shoes on. Like, there's always going to be a new time. And
those are all temporary, Yeah,
not losing yourself in the process. Remembering, doing things all along to still take care of yourself.
Yeah. You would think that the opposite of love is hate, but it's really apathy. Is there a time to let someone go out of your life? Is there a time to lean in, even though you know they'll hurt you? And how do you know the difference? And I think, in this situation we are again, I hate that people even have to say this because it seems like a no-brainer. We're not advocating for someone to stay in a dangerous situation or, we are talking about most of the situations that any of us are in. How do you know the difference? When to let a friend go, when to not speak to a family member. I think that we become a lot more wise with this as we grow. I think that the younger we are, almost sometimes we're more willing to just say, okay, I'm done. Or, I don't think we understand the long game as much when we're young. At least, maybe I should just speak for myself. I think I'm more wise at this point in my life than I would have been in my 20s about this.
I guess I was thinking of it from a little different perspective. Like, when I hopefully I am more wise now, but I was thinking younger, I kind of envisioned friendships lasting forever. And now I know they don't, and that it's okay. That sometimes friends come and go, like they're here for a season in life, or whatever drew you together is gone, or you've lost interest or moved away, or, whatever. I guess that's more of a mutual when it's mutual,
Well, I think if anybody has watched one of Julie's favorite movies at Christmas Vacation, you can see a bunch of imperfect people coming together and they're all joking about the others and they know what they're going into, and the mom's smoking because she's stressed. And like, we've all joked about, holidays and family because everybody struggles with this. Nobody has that picture perfect family get together where it's just lovely memories made the entire time. I mean, we all know we have to prayerfully go into these situations, and so there are going to be people that hurt your feelings. And I think that going into a situation, trying to find the common ground, trying to find places to love each other, looking for opportunities to get along instead of looking for how you've been wronged can really help change your perspective and the dynamic of that family get together. I mean, we're all going to be the moms that are bringing home kids and grandkids and all of that one day. And so setting the tone even for our own houses, because once our kids get married and the families continue to grow, I mean, you're going to have all that same dynamic again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Just more complicated.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about something that's kind of a red flag for me, because I read a lot of Christian writers on social media, like that are either counselors or they've written books and the phrase letting go of what no longer serves you. That,
Ooh.
how do you feel about that? Like, that is kind of a red flag for me, because a lot of
Well, would that apply to people? Are they saying like the person no longer serves you, so let them go?
It can. I mean,
Oh.
it can be relationships.
Seems like that's the opposite of love.
I know. So I started thinking about, like, okay, is that scriptural? And I thought about, carry each other's burdens, don't forget to do good to others. And ultimately, Jesus said to love others as you what? Love
yourself.
Oh.
And I see so many people say you have to learn to love yourself before you can love others. And I was reading this devotional this week, and I just thought this was amazing. The author said, I don't think Jesus is commanding you to love yourself, but it's more of an assumption. Like, he's saying, love your neighbor as you already massively love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I've never thought of it that way. We don't have to learn to love ourselves. Like, everybody looks out for number one,
Right.
You're going to eat, you're going to want your food, your shelter, your clothing, your love. So it really just takes a lot of grace and a lot of work to free us from the idol of self.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're also not like, woe is me, every sacrifice, like I never get what I want. I'm never looking out for myself. What it's saying is all those things you do for yourself, you should want those for other people too. And I thought that was such a beautiful way of saying that. Like, you can still take care of yourself and do good and talk kindly to yourself and take care of yourself, but then you should want that for other people too. Because I think there's trouble either way. If it's all just, you don't think highly of yourself at all and you let people walk all over you, that's not good.
Right.
And also, there just seems to be a lot of intense self-focus now.
Well, and you're right. Like, we can easily excuse, we've talked about this, our bad behavior with excuses. Like, we have reasons for why we do the things that we do. It's just we expect other people we don't see their excuses. We don't see, we don't give them the same grace we give ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be loving them like we love ourselves, because we're certainly willing to give ourselves excuses.
Yeah, we're like, well, I wouldn't have acted that way, but I'm really tired.
Yeah, but don't you know I'm tired or I've had a bad day? Well, give them that same grace. Yeah. So, I mean, don't you agree? None of us really need a course on how to love ourselves.
Oh, no. I mean,
they even said, like, well, what about somebody that's like self-harming? Like, they're not loving themselves. And they said, well, actually, they're going to great lengths because they want to be loved. They want to be. This one girl said, I cut myself because that's the only time I'm ever touched. Like, they're going to great lengths to do things themselves? to get what they need, I thought, I've never thought about that. Like, they're still looking out for their greatest, deepest need, and they're going to such, great lengths to get it. And so,
I think all of us love ourselves. The fact that we sometimes do things that we know aren't good for us, or maybe we don't know they're not good for us, but we still do them, whatever. The fact that we do things that are harmful for ourselves is not proof that we don't love ourselves. It's just that we're all flawed. We can't even love ourselves perfectly. How are we going to love other people perfectly?
True.
We all fall down in our relationship with ourselves and in our relationship with other people.
We definitely self-sabotage. In different forms.
Yeah. I mean, the Christian life is impossible on our own. It is an unattainable goal, but in our own flesh and in our own abilities.
Yeah. Well, this is good. I mean, this is challenging. I know that this week probably I'll have a situation. Could be right after this afternoon, there'll be a situation where I'm called on to practice what I'm preaching here on the podcast.
I know, it's kind of scary, isn't it?
It's a lot easier to talk about something than it is to do it. But part of the reason that we do episodes like this is to hold ourselves accountable, because if we say things out loud and flesh them out, then a lot of times we do a better job of following through on them.
Or like last time, I feel like after I said some things, God put me to the test. Like, do you really believe that? Because I'm going to, let's just see. Not that he caused anything to happen, but I'm just saying I didn't pass the test with flying colors.
Well, if I could read 1 Corinthians 13, just 4-7, I think that this is a really good litmus test for us. This is Jesus' example to us. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things.
It's a great reminder. That's the standard. It's something we should strive for. It's something we can look at even when we know that we are failing and say, okay, I can't do better than this, but I can pray about it and pray that God gives me the strength to do better than this.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for talking about this with me, Julie and Mindy. Listeners, we hope that this is enlightening for you. Just something to think about the next time you are thinking about maybe ending a friendship or avoiding someone in your family or cutting that person off on Facebook. Like, maybe just take a step back and say, is there another course I could take here?
Amen.
It was a good discussion.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we go, let's move into I'm a Fan. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
I had the coolest situation that happened the other day. And so I am a fan of developing habits with your children that go on to bless you in the future.
This sounds like a win-win.
It was a total win-win. I just have to tell you, like, this completely just blessed me the other day. So years ago, we started the practice of praying on the way to school. Now, this has not been a perfect practice. It was an effort sometimes to cut out the fighting, because if we weren't praying, somebody was fighting with somebody else. So when all 4 kids were in the car, we would practice praying, and we have continued the practice. I've only got 2 kids left in my car now. But the other day on the way to school, Grant called in and he said, "Hey, I know you guys are on the way to school and I know you're praying, and I wanted to pray over the boys today."
Oh, like, how sweet.
Well, absolutely, Grant. And so he prayed over the boys and over me. And then we're hanging up with him. And before we hang up, Abby's calling in.
Oh.
And she calls in, literally her words, "I know you're driving the boys to school and I know you're praying, so I wanted to pray over." I was like, oh my gosh, my heart is bursting.
That's awesome.
And so she wants to be involved in the prayer time before school.
Aww.
And so she prays with us. Before we hang up with her, Bryce is calling in and he says,
"Oh my goodness.
Hey, I know you guys are praying and I wanted to be a part of it this morning." And I was like, oh my gosh. All right. This is a moment I will remember forever.
Right.
But this practice of praying before school it is hardly ever perfect. So please don't hear that, but hear the joy of years of this practice of making it just a habit in our car and having Abby and Grant remember and call in. It just, I'm such a I'm such a fan.
Yes.
Did you feel like your
that's
car
wonderful.
left the ground a little?
I was floating. I mean, my mom heart was just taken off into
yeah.
outer space. It just meant the world to me that happened.
That's wonderful, Mindy. That is
Mhm.
wonderful. Gives hope to all those mothers out there praying on their way to school.
Gives me hope for another 20 years. I mean, like, filled my love bucket.
Yeah, that's awesome. Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
Well, I'm a fan of a book that, first of all, I'm a fan of the show All Creatures Great and Small on PBS.
Mhm.
I just love the scenery that it's filmed in the Yorkshire Dales. And so I've owned the books for years and have never read them. And so I'm listening. I own the Audible book. So I've started listening to the first book, All Creatures Great and Small. It's read by a British author, accent. And so it's just great because now I have the pictures of the people and the scenery from the gorgeous TV show. But you get a whole lot more details. The books are really, really good. And they're just, a friend told me to start reading them because she had been reading them and said they're just a great escape. They're just so relaxing and just gives me great visuals, and I just love them. So,
that's awesome.
If you haven't read the book,
I
recommend them.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. I am a fan of a service that Amazon has, but I don't know if a lot of people know about it. You probably know about it if you're younger than us, but I don't know if a lot of people our age know about it. So anyway,
Tell us, Marie.
So I wanted to order some new dishes, and they were like $100 a set. And I didn't really want to spend $100 a set because I needed 3 sets. So I scrolled down and I saw that it said save with used, and they were only $61 a set. And it says save with used very good, which means the condition. And when you click on it, a lot of times it'll say like marks on the box or crumpled cardboard, or, like there's usually not something wrong with the product. It's usually, I think, that someone has gotten it, didn't like it, packaged back up, and sent it back to Amazon, and now they're selling it used. It still even comes with the free shipping and the free return shipping if you don't like it.
No kidding.
So I was able to save $40 per set, which is actually like getting one of the sets for free. And I've done this on other things too. So if you are ordering something on Amazon and you see an option for saved with used, click on it, because I'm clicking on those same dishes right now, and they don't have the $60 ones, but they do have them for $80. So you could save $20 on a set. And also, don't give up if you don't see enough of them, because I ordered one set at $60 and it said they didn't have any more. So I thought, well, I'll just get the one set. Then when they came, I liked them, so I looked again. They had another set up for $60, so I ordered that one. Then the next day I looked, because I thought, I wonder if they only put one up at a time or what. So play around with it, look at it, but I ended up saving a lot of money with that. And no dish was broken. There was never anything wrong that I could see with the dishes, only the boxes.
Okay.
That's cool. I've always noticed it with books. I always choose an older book if I can, but I've not ever noticed it with anything else.
Yeah, I'll look for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mindy and Julie, let's challenge each other. Listeners, we challenge you to love other people well, because we know it is a challenge.
It's a good goal.
Yes. All right. Well, I'll talk to you guys next week.
All right.
Sounds great.
All right.
Bye.
Girls. We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.